This piece is near and dear to my heart, and for me really is an expression of the soul of this practice and all that it makes possible in the healing of the world. The promise that it holds in uniting and bridging the divides, bringing us back into a sense of whole community. And we call this undamning. Undamning, D-A-M-N, undamning. So I want to bring us back to infancy and childhood, imagining yourself as an infant or an infant in the world, imagining coming into this world without any sense of differentiation or bias, preferences, everything worthy of exploration and attention, curiosity, fascination, and awe. As we started to get mobility as babies and infants, starting to explore our world. If you've ever seen the face of an infant in exploration, it is one of essential fascination. No matter the object, no matter the person, everything is worthy of exploration and fascination. A connection with the essence of the world around us, without labels, without words, without categories. We were all children at one point, all in this space of undifferentiated exploration. Even a spoon could be regarded with such awe and fascination and curiosity, the reflection, the sides of it, the way it reflects light. Seeing my own face in the reflection, wow, what is that? And as we started to age, especially as we started to take on language, started to call things by their labels. And while the introduction of language into our lives was profoundly functional and useful, we also gave something up for that. We also sacrificed a connection to the essence of the world around us. And as we grew older and became more sophisticated with our languages, our brains and minds and neurons developed, we started to construct mental models and categories to make sense of the world around us, to orient ourselves to the world. And so you can imagine maybe perhaps stepping outside of your home and you see this extraordinary thing sprouting from the earth, reaching to the heavens. Colors and textures, shimmering things on the edges of this glorious thing rising from the earth. Worthy of such sacred fascination, appreciation, and yet at a certain point in our lives we just called out a tree. And then we walk down the street and there's another tree and another tree, and they're all just trees. And there's some point that we stopped, ceased to have that kind of profound connection to the essence of the world around us. And in fact started to relate to the world more through the models that we had constructed in our minds, more through the categories that we had constructed into which we populated things, items, people, than to the world exactly as it is itself. And so now, as adults, we have these very refined mental models and categories, labels and language to describe the world around us, to make sense of the world around us, to know where we are safe and unsafe, to know who is a friend and an ally and who is an enemy and someone dangerous to feel threatened by. We've now populated certain categories with hundreds or thousands or even millions of people. And we only know of those people through the labels and categories. In a way, we have dehumanized so many of our fellow humans by only relating with them through the labels that we impose upon them. And in so doing, we have damned those people. So just take a moment and see where you might have damned other humans in your life. And now you only associate or connect or think of those people as belonging to that category. are inside of that label. This is generally the only way that we can train humans to kill other humans in the context of our militaries, is to impose categories and labels of enemy, of threat on the other side, to dehumanize them. The act of damning is an act of dehumanizing. And authentic relating invites us to rehumanize each other. And I want to share a personal story with you around how I damned much of my family. My mom is from Kansas, a little town in Kansas on the plains. A town of about 1,800 or so. And my mom is the only one in my family that got out of that town. She became a flight attendant, stewardess back in the day, and met my dad on a transatlantic flight. He was British, and moved to London where I was born. And so I'd be going ever since birth to visit my mom's family in Kansas, in this little town, little hamlet on the plains of Kansas. And I grew up very much in a, European, coastal, progressive, liberal environment. And my family in Kansas just seemed like a whole different world. And gradually I became indoctrinated into a bias against my own family in Kansas as backwards and stuck in their old rigid ways, resistant to moving along with the culture of the country and the world, judgmental, biblical, religious, constrained by their narrow ideology. And I remember at a certain point in my impetuous late teens where I thought I could educate them and bring them out of the dark ages. I could somehow be the one to extract them out of their ignorance. And so you can imagine how that dialogue might have gone. Not well. It was my first taste of how actually my act of dehumanizing actually reinforces the defenses and the divides between us. And something started to shift, and there are two factors in what caused that shift. One was my discovering authentic relating and really bringing it into my life, and the other was having kids. I have 4 kids. And every year in this little town in Kansas, there's the county fair, which, if you know this part of the country, is a big deal. People come from all around the area to convene once a year for the county fair in August. And this county fair is one of the oldest in the state. This old, rickety Ferris wheel, and these rides that would never pass code anywhere else in the world, and look like they're just going to fall off and kill people any day. But it's a real celebration, and I've been going to fair every year my whole life. And there was a point where I started bringing my kids out to go to fair. As I was really taking on this practice, I started to see something different. I started to dissolve and loosen my judgments and biases, the labels and categories that I'd put my own family and all of their fellow townspeople into. And I started to get in touch with the underlying values that my family and those communities hold. And I started to see things I'd never seen my whole life. I started to see their value for real community, a kind of bond among them that I'd never experienced anywhere I'd lived. And I'd lived in cities all over the place. A kind of neighborly care and love that I'd personally never experienced. The way that they look after each other. The whole town rallies when somebody needs help and support. Everybody aware of each other, looking out for each other. I came to appreciate their connection to the earth and to the seasons. It's where all of the food is grown, all around there, just crops surrounding these towns. And the way that they are so attuned to the cycles of the seasons and of the earth. How harvest time is such a sacred time. And other ways of they're carrying themselves and seeing the world that I came to really deeply appreciate. And I came home and I wrote a long sort of essay that I posted to Facebook about what I was seeing there. And I tagged a couple of my cousins, my aunt and uncle, in it, and they read it and they commented just how appreciative and grateful they were that I was getting their world and conveying it back to my world. And they then shared it on their own pages, and then it spread to other people in the town. It got reshared and reshared and reshared, and the comments just started going on and on and on from people I'd never met or knew anything about, just saying like, thank you, thank you, thank you for really getting us. And it ended up being like my most shared post ever. It got reprinted in the town newspaper, and it spread to other towns, and just really never anticipated. It was this really sweet moment of a bridge being built between that world and the world that I lived in. That was my process of undamning my family and their fellow Kansans and Plains people. And I have a much richer, deeper, more reciprocal relationship with my family now. I love bringing my kids out there and exposing them to that worldview and those values. And so now I'm in the practice, and I want to invite all of us to be in the practice of extending that undamning to anywhere, to anyone that we have put into a category or have put under a label, and see if we can dissolve and reclaim those labels and see the human underneath. Authentic relating, as I said yesterday, is a universal language of human connection. And I have seen how profoundly impactful and applicable it is to bring humans into real connection, the kind of connection in which we are all gurus and all disciples, all sharing perspectives of the world with each other. And I do believe that the more perspectives that we are willing to sit in and see from, the more profound and rich and deep is our relationship to reality itself. We can see more of the world through the perspectives of others, instead of being confined to our own perspective. And to me, that's where so much of the healing of our divides can begin and be practiced.